Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is SewRena, and in today's video we're going to be celebrating Black History Month, and we want to put a focus on Diahann Carroll. In today's video we will be recreating an outfit from her television series that aired in 1968, Julia. In Julia, Diahann Carroll played a mom and a registered nurse. She's raising her 5-year-old son alone because her husband died in the Vietnam War. I'm looking forward to sewing up her nurse's uniform as well as getting into some details about her life because I read her book, as well as what I enjoyed about the TV series that I am still currently watching. So if you're interested in seeing the process of recreating a vintage styled nurse's uniform or movie styled nurse's uniform, then stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next clip. So the show was aired in 1968, and I found the Simplicity pattern. It is Simplicity 8463, and it is from 1969. It is a dress and pant pattern, and I'm going to do some alterations to this dress to make it more like the nurse's outfit. More notably, I'm going to shorten the collar a little, put a little V-cut in it to match the little notched raised collar that she had, and I'm also going to make like a little bib with snaps on it, also to match the way that she had it. I'm also going to make a nurse's cap to go with that outfit, and then style a wig, not here on camera, but I purchased a wig to have her short, like pixie cut. I don't know what you would call it, but to have her little short haircut. So this is what we're going to be working on, and we'll get into the cutting. So I'm starting with the pant pattern. I always usually tend to go with the biggest pieces first. So if I run out, at least my pants are cut and I could shorten the dress portion because I have long legs. So I have to make sure that I have enough fabric for my pants always. So I am cutting out the pant front, and it is a poly cotton twill. I should have made this out of a stapled knit, but that costs more, and this was not my original project idea. So since this was my plan B, I had already spent money for project A, and I did not want to blow my creative or hobby budget on buying the stapled knit for this project. So we went with a poly cotton twill, and I chose the poly cotton twill because it wrinkles less than the regular cotton twill, and I needed the uniform to be very sharp and as wrinkle free as possible because hers was. But second, I think it looks really nice to display a vintage nurse's uniform looking very crisp and clean. This is very uncommon for my channel, at least I think, but we are starting off by serging all of the pieces. I ran out of time with this project, like I said, because I did start late since I changed my original plans. So I went ahead and serged everything just to cut off some time, and because it's a nurse's uniform, it's not like my projects of the past where I intended on wearing this for other occasions. I don't know when I'll have another opportunity to wear this, so unless it's for like a Halloween, or I don't cosplay, so there's really no reason for me to have to wear this again. So I did go ahead and serge all the pieces, which serging is fine. I just prefer to do French seams on garments that I intend on keeping forever because I am pretty harsh with my clothes. I've gotten better over the years with not laundering everything just because like I touched it. So that's why I tend to do French seams, but serging is perfectly okay. So I went ahead and threaded my serger after telling you in my last video that it's been a while since I turned it on. I threaded it and had it ready for this project. Let's talk about Diahann Carroll. So Diahann Carroll was born from two Southern parents who moved to New York. They actually moved to Harlem. Diane's mother was a high school graduate, and her dad did not finish elementary school. So they didn't have a lot. They met each other at a very young age. I think that they were still teenagers when they met. I can't remember. But they were very young when they met. They fell in love straight away. Her dad was not looking for a wife, but the mom saw him. He was very tall, and she knew that that was going to be her husband, and eventually they did get married. And I think a couple years later, they had Diane, who they treated like a princess. That is until, well, they've always consistently treated her like a princess throughout her life, but she did have a little bit of childhood trauma when she was a toddler. They dropped her off with her aunt to live for a year so that way they could save up enough money and get them in a financial position to where she could have everything that they believed she deserved, because they wanted her to have everything that all the other children, like the more affluent black families had, and they didn't feel like they could give that to her unless they made a sacrifice, which was letting her stay with her aunt for a year. But this traumatized Diane because it made her feel as though she was abandoned and that people could abandon her. But when she came back home, she definitely saw a noticeable difference in the way that her parents were living and the things that they were able to provide. Her dad ended up getting into a little bit of like real estate, so he would rent out apartments or space for people to live. They bought a brownstone, and eventually they moved out to the suburbs. Actually, they moved out to a white suburbs where people, I think within the first week or month, they tried to burn their house down. But luckily for them, they were in an all brick house, so it never really caught, and they were fine. So Diane, she got into modeling at a young age. She was always into performing arts. That's something that her and her mother shared together. They would go to plays and musicals and things like that. And then she got into modeling. Eventually, she left her regular public school and went to a performing arts school where she was in love being around with people who were just like her. She's always gone to school in a integrated school, which was a huge difference from her parents. Like, she did say that her dad did witness a child being set on fire when he was younger, and so he always had a fear of white people. And so her navigating the world without the fear that her dad had was definitely an eye opener for her. For him to see her do those things, she was very accomplished. She was on Broadway. She did TV shows. She was in Star Trek. And then she got Julia. She was also a singer. She loved singing. I think it almost seemed as though she loved singing more than she did acting. And although she never had like a hit album or anything like that, she loved what she was doing on Broadway. And any opportunity she got to sing, really. Then she got Julia, a show that she almost was not going to get because the director did not want such a flashy person, because she was just so into fashion. Her and her mom used to bond over that all the time. Her mom would take her to pick out fabrics, and her mom would scrunch fabric to make sure that if it wrinkled too much, that wasn't the fabric for them, and then take it to a seamstress to have her have the prettiest dresses ever. She was always well dressed, even when she went to school. It was something that she eventually got picked on for. So when she tried out, well, she was going to audition for Julia, she found out that the director did not want her because he felt like she was too flashy. She played a model in her last acting gig, and he wanted someone that seemed more down to earth and more like a working mom. So she dressed down for the part. And when the director saw her, he was like, I want this woman to play her. And then eventually he was like, wait, he knows her. And sure enough, it was Diahann Carroll. And he was like, She was like, I dressed down for this part. I can be her. And he gave her the job. And I think she did a lovely job. And now, Julia was controversial for its time. So, this is the 1960s. This is the civil rights movement era. This is when you have your marches. And Emmett Till was murdered for whistling at, or supposedly whistling at, a white woman. So a lot was going on in the black community, in America as a whole, to fight for our freedoms. And Julia airs, and she is not living a very realistic black life in America. So in this show, Julia moves in a way that I personally think that if you took her character out and put in a white person to play that role, no one would be the wiser. They do bring up in some episodes her race, and you are reminded sometimes, not all the time, that she, of course, is of a like she's a minority person. Some racism comes up, but not too much. And when it does come up, she's able to defend herself in a way that I don't think is necessarily realistic. And I think for me, that's probably why a lot of black people had an issue with this show. And I'm sure it's not everybody, because perhaps Julia was a real life person to some people. And I even think to some extent, because of the way that Diahann herself was raised, maybe her life could have been reflected in that character, to an extent. So, like I said before, she was going to an integrated school her entire life. She said herself that she, when it came to being around her peers, what mattered more was the arts and things like that, more than their race did. I would dare to say that Julia, the character, lived a life more realistic for 2022 than I would say in the 1960s. But that's just my guess. Representation is extremely important. It's not enough just to give one show and one perspective, because, like everyone else, black people are a diverse people. We have different experiences. We exist in a multifaceted type of way. So it's not enough to just give one show or one form of representation and think that it's going to be one size fits all, because then you get a situation like Julia where a lot of people are angry and feel misrepresented, and possibly, I don't know, this is me speculating, but possibly they felt like this was doing nothing to help their fight for civil rights, because here is a black woman being treated essentially like an equal on a widely televised popular TV show. So that's just my speculation. We'll get back to the outfit. So I roughly draped, because your girl has no draping skills, the bib with a scrap linen that I had, and now I'm cutting it out on the twill. I do not have enough to make an accident here, so I have to make this once and make it work, because I only have enough to make the cap after this. So yeah, so here I am sewing it on. And then I initially thought that her uniform had covered buttons, but once I started watching the show, I realized that they were metal snaps. They were painted metal snaps, but I could only get the silver ones, and I did not have a snap plier. I actually hammered these on, so there was no painting them unless I painted them while they were already on the uniform. But I knew I was going to be taking some edited photos, so I didn't think it'd be too much of an issue. So that is what I am doing here. I am sewing on the bib. I made one slight mistake on this uniform. On the dart, one of the darts aren't exactly the same in the front. So that was a slight misstep, but I think it turned out pretty okay, considering I had like a couple days to work on it because I knew I wanted to watch more of the show as well as get this video out. So that's what I did. I found this pattern on Etsy. I'm going to link it in the description below for the hat. All I did was add a strip of single fold bias tape to get that little detail on her hat. What I didn't notice until I watched the show is that her cap was not like this standard cap. There's 2 nurses on the show. The managing nurse's hat is like this, and Julia's hat is more like a cone in the back, sort of like a witch's hat, and it's not as wide. So my hat is not perfectly correct, and it would have helped if I watched the show prior to making it, but I only had enough to make exactly what I did. There was no room for any mistakes at all whatsoever. So I think despite it not being TV show accurate, it came out okay. So here I am adding the metal snaps. I cut the fabric. I don't have an awl that would have been wide enough for it, and so the instructions say to cut a hole in the fabric. So I just cut a hole, stuck the snap in, and I only used one side of the snap. So it's basically there for decoration. It snaps to nothing. I just needed that top edge to make it look like it snapped. One thing I also should note is that it seems that maybe in the following seasons, I'm still on season 1, that she had a uniform change. So the season that I'm watching now is a different uniform, but the picture that I showed seems to be maybe a later season. It looks more 70s to me. So perhaps it's the 70s. This was just a very simple design, and I didn't have to buy a pattern, so that's why I went with this one. So now I am starching and pressing, and I absolutely love spray starch and pressing. The sizzle of the starch and then seeing how nicely my garment is pressed afterwards is just so satisfying. So that is what I'm doing, and then after this you guys will get a reveal. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. You should check out her book. It was a really good listen. It is narrated by her, so you get to hear her excitement when she talks about all her affairs and the love of her grandchildren, as well as the passion she had for fashion and singing. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your month, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as follow me on Instagram if you want to follow my projects in real time. Bye.